There's a version of you that has overstayed its welcome. It's the version that makes excuses, the version that rationalizes fear, the version that says, maybe next week, or I'm not ready. That version isn't just holding you back, it's robbing the world of who you're supposed to become. 2025 isn't a fresh start unless you make it one. Dates don't change people. Intentions do. Commitment does. Execution does. Every day you delay confronting that weaker self, you're choosing comfort over character. And comfort never built anything meaningful. We often talk about growth as though it's a gentle process. It's not. Growth is war. And the first enemy you have to face is inside your own head. The weak version of you knows your insecurities better than anyone else. It's a master of disguise, wearing masks like procrastination, overthinking, comparison. And it whispers things that sound rational but are rooted in fear. It tells you to wait until conditions are perfect. It tells you you're not qualified. It keeps you addicted to validation, to likes, to other people's approval. That version of you doesn't care about progress. It cares about safety. It cares about blending in. But nothing changes until you confront it. So how do you kill that weak version of you? You begin by identifying its patterns. When does it show up? What does it say? How does it make you feel? Awareness is the first act of resistance. The second is discipline. And that's the part most people avoid because discipline is uncomfortable. It's inconvenient. But it's also how you rewire your identity. Make no mistake, this isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming responsible. You are responsible for your habits, your decisions, your environment. You are responsible for what you consume, how you speak to yourself, how you show up when no one is watching. That's where the transformation begins. In 2025, you don't need more motivation. You need more clarity. You need a personal mission that scares you just enough to force evolution. You need standards so high that your excuses can't breathe near them. And you need to remember that you are not your past. You are your patterns. Change your patterns and you change your identity. This year, kill the version of you that avoids hard conversations, that escapes into distraction, that waits for the stars to align. Replace it with someone who honors their word, even when it's hard. Someone who builds in silence and lets the results speak. Someone who runs toward discomfort because they understand pain is the tuition for progress. And remember, transformation is not an event, it's a process. It's not sexy, it's not always visible. But it compounds every small win, every disciplined decision, every honest moment. You're chiseling away the weaker self and sculpting something greater. Don't carry dead weight into a new year. Kill that weak version of you. Not with anger, but with awareness. Not with hate, but with hunger. And when you look in the mirror months from now, let the person staring back be unrecognizable in the best possible way. 5 keynotes of the speech, the weak version of you is a master of fear disguised as logic. Recognize its patterns and confront them head on. Growth doesn't come from motivation. It comes from clarity, discipline, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. You are not defined by your past, but by the patterns you repeat. Change the pattern, change the identity. Killing the weak self is not about hate. It's about responsibility, evolution, and building the strongest version of yourself in silence. 2025 is not your transformation. Your daily decisions are. Don't wait for the right moment. Create it. The weak version of you is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. Instead, it quietly whispers into your thoughts, often in ways that sound rational. It's the voice that says, you've done enough for today. Even when you haven't. It's the presence that nudges you to scroll for 10 more minutes, even though your goals are calling. It's the internal dialogue that justifies staying the same. And what makes it so dangerous is that it sounds so reasonable. It doesn't act like an enemy. It disguises itself as your protector. This version of you is built out of years of habits, fears, and defense mechanisms. It thrives in uncertainty by clinging to familiarity. And so when something inside you says, I want to change, I want more, the weak self responds, but what if we fail? It convinces you to play small because it's more comfortable. It feeds you fear in the form of logic. It tells you the timing isn't right, that you need more information, more support, more confidence. But those are illusions. What you actually need is less of the voice that's keeping you stuck. This internal resistance is a deeply rooted part of the human experience. We are wired for survival, not success. The weak self is the remnant of the part of you that just wanted to get through the day, avoid danger, and stay safe. But safety today looks different. It doesn't mean hiding from predators. It means hiding from discomfort, from emotional exposure, from the risks tied to growth. And yet, the brain doesn't distinguish between real danger and perceived fear. That's why so many people stay exactly where they are, not because they lack potential, but because they've listened to a voice that isn't committed to their growth. The weak version you also has a strategy. It's predictable. It shows up when you're tired, when you've failed, when the path ahead feels foggy. It thrives when you're isolated and under pressure. It gets louder when you start taking risks. It begins to speak in doubts, hesitations, and excuses. And if you're not aware of it, you might mistake that voice as your own. You might begin to believe it. But here's the truth. That voice is not you. It's just a pattern, a neurological groove formed by years of choosing ease over excellence. It's not a life sentence. It's a learned response, which means it can be unlearned. But first, you have to become aware of it. Awareness is the beginning of control. Once you recognize the moments when that voice shows up, you gain the ability to respond instead of react. You might hear it when you're about to speak up in a meeting and it tells you to stay quiet. You might hear it when you're ready to start your fitness journey and it tells you to wait until Monday. You might hear it when you're finally ready to pursue something meaningful and it asks, who do you think you are? These are not coincidences. These are moments of transformation, and the weak self shows up because it knows you're stepping outside of the comfort zone it desperately wants you to stay in. The goal isn't to silence the weak self overnight. That's unrealistic. The goal is to reduce its influence, to call it out, to interrupt the pattern. Each time you act in defiance of its narrative, you weaken it. When it says, you can't, and you do it anyway, you take power back. When it says, it's too hard, and you lean in, you grow stronger. Over time, your identity begins to shift. You begin to trust yourself more than the doubt. So if you want 2025 to be different, you must learn to recognize the weak version of yourself not as truth, but as noise. You must learn to question its logic and test its stories. You must be willing to lean into fear instead of retreating from it. And every single time you choose courage over comfort, you're killing that old version of you. Not violently, but consciously. Not with hate, but with clarity. This is not about pretending to be fearless. It's about moving forward despite the fear. Because the weak version of you will never leave completely, but its power over you can. And that begins the moment you stop believing every thought you think and start acting on the person you are becoming, not the one you've been. Growth doesn't come from motivation. It comes from clarity, discipline, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. This truth is often overlooked because we live in a world that glorifies motivation. Social media is flooded with quotes, highlight reels, and short bursts of inspiration that make it seem like the key to success is simply feeling fired up. But motivation is a mood. It's temporary. It comes and goes. And if you build your progress on something that's unstable, your results will be inconsistent at best and non-existent at worst. The people who create lasting change in their lives don't rely on motivation. They rely on clarity. Clarity is the compass that gives direction when the path gets dark. It's knowing exactly why you're doing what you're doing. Without that why, discipline feels like punishment. But with it, discipline becomes purpose in motion. When you wake up in the morning and you're not feeling your best, clarity is what pulls you out of bed. It reminds you of who you want to become. It gives you something to commit to that is bigger than your temporary feelings. Discipline then is the bridge between clarity and achievement. It's not exciting. It doesn't always feel good, but it builds something that no amount of motivation can, consistency. The kind of consistency that compounds over time and begins to shape your identity. Discipline is about doing what you said you would do long after the emotion you said it in has faded. It's about building routines that support your goals, even when you're tired, distracted, or discouraged. The truth is, discipline doesn't mean you always feel like doing the work. It means you do the work regardless of how you feel. We have been taught to chase comfort, to avoid friction. But real growth begins where comfort ends. If your routine is always easy, you're not growing, you're maintaining. And maintaining is just another word for stagnation. The willingness to be uncomfortable is one of the greatest predictors of personal transformation. It's what allows you to have hard conversations, to confront your flaws, to start things before you feel ready. It's what allows you to keep going when things get boring, repetitive, or hard. Most people stop growing not because they lack talent or intelligence, but because they avoid discomfort. They stop when the honeymoon phase of motivation wears off. They stop when things get inconvenient. But discomfort is the cost of change. You don't become stronger by doing what you've always done. You become stronger by choosing the hard thing again and again, until the hard thing becomes your new normal. There will be days when clarity feels distant, when the reasons that once inspired you now feel vague. There will be seasons when discipline feels dry, robotic, even meaningless. That's normal. That's part of the process. But those are the very moments that shape your character. Those are the days that separate the people who want change from the people who commit to it. Growth doesn't happen in the rush of adrenaline. It happens in the slow, deliberate grind of repetition, of showing up, of building something brick by brick, even when there's no applause, no recognition, and no instant result. You must be willing to trade short-term comfort for long-term progress. You must be willing to stop asking, how do I feel? And start asking, what needs to be done? That shift changes everything. Because when you stop chasing motivation and start chasing excellence, you begin to live by principles, not moods. And principles are reliable. They anchor you. They guide your actions. They don't care if you're tired or uninspired. They just demand your effort. Clarity, discipline, and discomfort are not glamorous. They don't make for flashy headlines or viral moments, but they make for transformation. And in 2025, if you want to kill the weaker version of yourself, you must stop waiting to feel ready. You must begin to build habits that support your future self. You must embrace the discomfort that molds you into someone who doesn't just dream of change, but lives it daily. So no, you don't need more motivation. You need to understand exactly what you want, commit to it with daily action, and get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's how the new you is created, not in a moment of hype, but in the quiet moments of discipline when no one is watching. You are not defined by your past, but by the patterns you repeat. Change the pattern, change the identity. This idea is simple, yet profoundly transformative. Many people remain stuck because they believe their past has permanently shaped who they are. They look at their failures, their missed opportunities, the times they didn't show up as their best, and they wear those moments like a label. But identity is not fixed. It's not carved in stone. It's fluid, and it is being shaped in real time by your behaviors, your choices, your patterns. Most people don't realize that they're living the same day over and over again. The same routines, the same thoughts, the same reactions, and yet they wonder why their life doesn't change. The reason is simple. Your life is built from your patterns, not your potential. You can be full of ambition, full of dreams, full of knowledge. But if you keep living in patterns that don't support that vision, you will never experience the future you crave. Potential without aligned patterns leads to frustration, not transformation. Your past can inform you, but it doesn't have to imprison you. What holds most people back is not what happened, but what they continue to do because of what happened. They get stuck in a loop. They make decisions based on old versions of themselves. They replay the same emotional scripts. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I'm not built for this. And over time, those repeated thoughts become beliefs, and those beliefs start dictating behavior. That's how identity gets built, through repetition. But repetition works both ways. Just like you've repeated limiting thoughts, you can begin to repeat empowering ones. Just like you've acted from fear, you can begin to act from courage. The key is not to change everything at once, but to disrupt the pattern, to catch yourself when you're about to respond in the old way and make a different choice. It may seem small at first, waking up earlier, speaking up in a meeting, finishing what you start. But each of these small decisions is a vote for a new identity. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming who you've always had the potential to be. That person is not hidden in the future. They are buried under years of outdated patterns. You don't need a radical reinvention overnight. You need to show up differently today. You need to create a new normal, one decision at a time. Changing your patterns requires deep honesty. You have to look at your behaviors and ask, what are these actions creating? If you're always distracted, always rushing, always reacting, what kind of identity are you reinforcing? On the other hand, if you start each day with intention, if you prioritize growth, if you stay consistent when it's hard, what identity are you building then? The answers are not complicated, but they are confronting. You must also understand that the world responds not to your potential, but to your patterns. People don't see your intentions. They see your habits. They see how you show up. And that's why transformation is internal before it's ever visible externally. You have to become someone new privately long before anyone notices publicly. And that means showing up differently even when it feels pointless, even when results are delayed, even when your old self tries to pull you back. That inner pull will happen. The old you doesn't go down without a fight. It will try to convince you that change is fake, that it's not working, that it's too late. But every time you stick to the new pattern, you weaken that voice. You create distance between who you were and who you're becoming. And over time, the distance turns into a gap, and the gap becomes a line. And one day you look back and realize you crossed it. You became the version of yourself you used to only imagine. The difference between who you are and who you want to be isn't found in grand gestures. It's found in the micro decisions you make every day. Those decisions, stacked one on top of the other, form your identity. You are not your past. You are your pattern. And the power to change that pattern has always been yours. Killing the weak self is not about hate. It's about responsibility, evolution, and building the strongest version of yourself in silence. Too often, we hear language about self-improvement that sounds aggressive, crush your doubts, destroy your fears, eliminate your weaknesses. But this mindset can sometimes backfire because it creates an internal war that feels like you're fighting yourself. And in truth, growth doesn't come from hating the past version of who you were. It comes from taking full ownership of your life, recognizing where you've been, and choosing again and again to build someone stronger. Taking responsibility is the beginning of this process, and responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for every mistake or failure. It means accepting that no one else is coming to save you, that no one else is going to rewrite your story, that the path forward is your job, not anyone else's. That level of ownership is uncomfortable because it strips away the excuses. It removes the ability to point fingers, but it's also incredibly empowering because it gives you full control. The moment you stop waiting for someone to give you permission to change is the moment you start becoming powerful. The weaker version of you wants someone to fix things. It wants external validation, external motivation, external solutions. It waits for the right time, the perfect opportunity, the ideal mood. And while it waits, time passes. The stronger version of you stops waiting and starts creating. It shows up even when it's inconvenient. It stays consistent even when it's unnoticed. That's the difference. And building that version of yourself isn't loud or dramatic. It happens quietly in silence, far away from attention. We live in a world obsessed with visibility. Everyone wants to be seen changing, to be praised for making progress. But true evolution often begins in the dark. It starts with the decision to improve, not for applause, but for alignment. It's when you start choosing who you want to be even when no one is watching. That's where real strength is forged, not on stage, not online, but in the daily disciplines you keep when no one else is around to notice. Building the strongest version of yourself is about choosing integrity over image. It's about doing the hard thing even when the easy way would go unnoticed. It's skipping the party to keep your promise to yourself. It's making the better choice at the moment it costs the most. And the reward for that, self-respect. Not the superficial kind that comes from others, but the deep, quiet kind that comes from knowing you can trust yourself. That's a kind of strength that no one can give you and no one can take away. You don't kill the weak self with force. You kill it with repetition. You starve it of attention. You outgrow it by choosing higher standards. It fades when you stop feeding it excuses. And you don't do it in one dramatic moment. You do it in 1,000 quiet ones. Every time you wake up on time, when you follow through on your plan, when you speak the truth even when it's hard, you are creating a gap between the old self and the new one. This gap is how transformation becomes visible. At first, it's hard to see. It feels like nothing is changing. But with time, those small choices compound. The weak self becomes a memory, a past version of you that you no longer resonate with. And what's left in its place is someone who has built themselves through practice, intention, and action, not noise. The strongest version of you is not the loudest, it's the most aligned. It's the version that honors commitments in private, that chooses growth over comfort, that takes responsibility instead of seeking blame. It's not about trying to be perfect, it's about being better. Every single day, in some small way, pushing the line forward. You don't need to hate who you were. You just need to decide that you're not staying there. This process is not about proving anything to anyone. It's about becoming someone you can be proud of, someone who no longer seeks permission to evolve, someone who doesn't rely on inspiration to take action, someone who has killed the weak self not with anger, but with awareness, with discipline, and with the courage to become more, even if no one notices. Because in the end, the strongest transformation happens in silence and speaks the loudest through who you become. 2025 is not your transformation, your daily decisions are. Don't wait for the right moment. Create it. This idea challenge is one of the most common traps. People fall into the belief that change begins with a new year, a new month, or some perfect moment in the future. But transformation doesn't come with a date stamp. It's not waiting for January 1st or Monday morning. It begins the moment you decide to act differently, think differently, and live differently, consistently. Most people live in the illusion of someday. Someday they'll start working out. Someday they'll chase their dream. Someday they'll have the courage to say what they really mean or do what truly matters. But someday is just a delay disguised as planning. It's a stall tactic, a subtle form of procrastination dressed in the clothes of optimism. What people don't realize is that every time they wait for the right time, they're reinforcing the identity of someone who waits, someone who hesitates, someone who needs perfect conditions to move. Your transformation doesn't happen because of what you want. It happens because of what you do repeatedly. Your habits, your rituals, your patterns, these are the architects of who you become. If you're not changing what you do today, then nothing will change tomorrow. Desire is not enough. You need to cast votes for the future you want, and those votes are your actions. Each decision, no matter how small, is either a step toward the person you want to be or a retreat into the person you've always been. You don't need more time, you need more intention. Every moment you're given is already an opportunity. The challenge is not the clock, it's your clarity. Are you clear about what you're building? Are you clear about what matters most? Without that clarity, even the best moments will be wasted. But with it, even the smallest pockets of time can become transformational. 5 minutes, 10 minutes of discipline, one decision to break a pattern. That's all it takes to start momentum. People often think transformation is dramatic, that it comes from some emotional turning point. But in reality, it's subtle, it's quiet. It's when you do the workout even when no one will see it. It's when you turn down distraction and choose to focus. It's when you follow through on your word, even if it's just to yourself. These decisions don't look impressive in the moment. But over time, they form a structure, a rhythm, a life. And one day you look up and realize you've become someone different, not by accident, but by design. This is why waiting is such a dangerous habit. Waiting makes you a spectator in your own life. It tricks you into thinking the perfect moment is coming when really the only thing you're doing is rehearsing in action. The truth is there is no right time, there's only time. And how you use it determines everything. If you keep pushing things off, you're training yourself to tolerate delay. But when you act, even in small ways, you're training yourself to trust your own power. Transformation doesn't feel magical. It feels repetitive. It feels boring. It feels hard. But that's where the change is hidden, not in motivation, but in motion. The people who evolve the most are not the ones who talk about it the most. They're the ones who just do the work quietly, daily, regardless of whether the world is watching or not. Because they understand that greatness isn't created in bursts of energy. It's built in layers, one committed action at a time. If you want 2025 to be the year everything changes, don't look to the calendar for permission. Look to your behavior. Ask yourself, what do my decisions say about who I am becoming? Because every action is a reflection of your direction. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. The truth is, you already know what you need to do. You've known for a while. The question is, will you keep waiting for some ideal moment to finally become who you were meant to be? Or will you start today with what you have where you are. The future isn't created in the future, it's created in the present. And the person you want to become in 2025 will not appear because the year changed. They'll appear because you changed your discipline, your focus, your priorities. Don't wait for life to hand you the right conditions. You are the condition, you are the catalyst. And your transformation starts with one choice, repeated daily. That's how you stop wishing for change and start becoming the change. The truth is, the version of you that's held you back doesn't belong in your future. Not in 2025, not ever again. That version was built from fear, excuses, and comfort, and you've outgrown it. This new chapter is not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming who you've always had the potential to be. But potential alone means nothing without clarity, without discipline, without the courage to step into discomfort and stay there long enough to evolve. This transformation won't happen through motivation alone. It will happen through quiet repetition, through the moments you choose responsibility over blame, action over delay, growth over comfort. You don't need a new year to change your life. You need a new standard, one that doesn't ask for permission, one that doesn't seek approval, one that doesn't tolerate the patterns that kept you small. The strongest version of you isn't found in noise. It's forged in silence, in the discipline no one sees, in the decisions no one applauds, in the daily commitment to kill off the weaker self, not with hatred, but with truth, consistency, and purpose. 2025 won't change you. Your choices will. And when you look back a year from now, let it be with pride, not regret. Let it be the year you stopped waiting. Let it be the year you finally showed up.